Hello everyone, welcome back to Looney. My name is Looney, and today I want to talk about My Hero Academia shipping, specifically because of what happened in the second to last final chapter of the series. I don't really much talk about shipping in My Hero Academia on this channel a lot, but I do like talking about shipping. I have followed My Hero Academia since the beginning of the series. I kind of stopped reading it after a while because I kind of lost interest and moved on to other things like work and stuff like that, but I did catch up to see what the final chapter would be like next week. But I do want to talk about it because this was like one of the huge chapters that people were waiting for, because it's mostly, about shipping. And as someone who enjoys shipping a lot, no matter what piece of fiction I consume, I just enjoy it in general. But I do want to talk about it because I know a lot of people were expecting a big grand shipping moment between Deku and Ochako, right? And a lot of people are a little bit dissatisfied of the outcome of what happened in the chapter. Now, of course, My Hero Academia shipping can be very volatile. There's a lot of people in My Hero Academia who support Yaoi and Yuri ships, such as Bakudeku and even Toga and Ochako. So I don't want to come off as saying that that I disagree with any of those ships, because at the end of the day, you can ship whoever you want, no matter what anyone says. Like, ship who you want, have fun with it, celebrate your moment, celebrate shipping whatever characters you want. But I think part of the discourse between shippers is that a lot of people assume that, in this day and age that we live, especially if you live on the western hemisphere of the planet, that a lot of times creative writers will essentially go towards a route that some people believe to be the correct, or not the correct route, more like the progressive route. That's the best way to say it. And that there's always a chance that a Yaoi ship or Yuri ship will happen. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I do have another video coming sometime soon about this. But I just want to say to, that it really sucks for a lot of Yaoi Yuri shippers for like shonen series, because the chances of it happening are very low, and that has nothing to do with like the author not wanting to make any of those ships happen. I think it's mostly to do with the corporation side of it, where like Shonen Jump, shonen means young boys, and that Shonen Jump is a serialization for those young boys, young teens, specifically them, right? And like with the way Japan's laws are in terms of like the LGBT community, it's not as like they don't provide kind of a safety net like like the United States does, where you are free to represent yourself with as whatever gender you want, right? Gender you want, whatever sexuality you are. At the end of the day, Japan has a lot more stricter laws, and in terms of a corporation, especially in Japan where a lot of corporations are more conservative, the chances of it happening are very low. And I think that a lot of people think that despite all that, things like that could happen, right? So it's sad, because I do hope that one day that changes, because goddamn, I think Naruto Sasuke should have been canon. But I think that's part of the reason why there's so much discourse in the shipping community, right? But moving on from that, like I said, I'll explain it a little bit more in detail with like in a future video. The scene with Deku and Ochako, I think, can be seen as a shipping moment, but I'm kind of glad Hori did not go in the route of like a big shipping moment where like they confess or like they kiss or anything like that, right? I think it's actually a really good thing he went in this direction, simply because they're both healing. These two characters just went through a big conflict, a big battle, right? That had a lot of trauma over the ideology of being a hero, and them trying to comfort each other through this essentially parallel and similar trauma they experience is the correct route I think he took. And I think it was a great chapter showcasing just how much both of these two characters are very much similar in their ideology as the heroes. They both want to save people. They both like seeing people happy. Ochako, literally in the chapter, they talk about how Ochako loves seeing people smile. Like, she puts, others before herself. Deku does something very similar, right? They are very similar to each other, and that's what makes the relationship work a lot, right? I understand that there's some people who believe that, having similarities doesn't always mean a relationship, and that is true, because sometimes opposites attract. You have to, in a lot of relationships, and a lot of good relationships, sometimes, couples, partners tend to, have weaknesses that the other would essentially be their strength, right? So sometimes similarities in shipping may not always be like the best type of ship that people would love to, ship and stuff. But I think the way Hori presented it was a great way to essentially conclude their character arcs. While it does sort of feel like the character arcs and like their ideologies and like what they want to be as heroes isn't necessarily finished. I think we'll get more of that in the final chapter. It's still a great character climax between these two characters, because they're very similar. They're very similar in the hero ideology. They wanted to save these villains. They're villains, they're psychopaths, they really killed a lot of people, they're really bad people, but they still wanted to save them. They hoped in some sort of way that they will find a way to heal them, to save them, but in the end, what happened was that they couldn't save them and they died. And the way it is presented between Ochako and Toga, it's that Ochako feels regret that she couldn't save her, and that Toga had to basically sacrifice herself to save her because of the events that happened during the final conflict, where she gets stabbed and stuff like that, right? And she has those regrets because, as someone who loves to see people smile, who wants to save people, the fact that the person that she wanted to save actually then saved her, hurt her a lot. It really made it so painful for Ochako. That's why she has this moment of, tears, crying, and all this, and this sad, like, remembrance of this character that she faced off against, who she wanted to save so badly, because Ochako understands that she went through a childhood that was very, very, filled with being neglected, being ostracized for having this quirk and having this type of sort of like the best way I can explain it is like this type of urge to like see blood, hurt people and stuff like that, because she and that was in consequence to her quirk, right? Because sometimes, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I read through all of My Hero Academia. I started off from where I left off, but quirks sometimes essentially do and I could be wrong, let me know if I'm wrong about this. Quirks can definitely change a person's personality depending on what their quirk is, right? If I'm wrong about that, like I said, let me know in the comments. But essentially, yeah, this wasn't, I don't think this should have been a shipping moment in the way that people thought there would be a confession, there would be a kiss, or anything like that. I think what Hori did was actually the proper way, because at the end of the day, it's all about, healing each other through this shared trauma that they had, and that as long as they have each other, as long as they have a hand to hold, as long as they are there, they'll be able to get through that pain that they are feeling. And I think he did a very good job in showcasing that in this chapter, especially the conversation between the two. And I think that, I think that's a proper way to showcase this. Like I said, this is a very much also a shipping moment. I don't want to, discourage people that this moment wasn't a shipping moment. A lot of people that I've seen that are opposed to Deku and Ochako, are celebrating or happy because, they didn't confess, so they're not technically canon according to them, but it's still a shipping moment. It's still a moment where these two characters got closer to each other because them comforting each other through their shared trauma, right? It's very similar, not exactly like fully one-to-one, but it's very similar to like the whole thing with Cloud and Tifa, essentially. They both had shared trauma, and they eventually work through it together by using each other to comfort each other about their trauma, and then, you know, healing each other based on that trauma, you know, and finding a way to heal each other. This is exactly the same thing that happened here, and I think that's why I like it, because of the way that Final Fantasy VII does it. You know, it's very similar in that way, and I think Hori did a fantastic job in regarding it. Like I said, I know people are upset about the confession, like no confession, but with the way it's going from the last page or not, they look like they're very, you know, they look like they're going to be somewhat in a very long friendship. It could definitely be eventually into a romantic relationship, because also remember, Chaco loves Deku. Deku has had feelings, or, you know, showcased moments where he has, you know, an attraction towards the Chaco. So eventually it will probably lead to like something between them, but that all depends on if Hori in the final chapter decides to like an epilogue of like the future, and he confirms relationships at that point. There's always a possibility, I think, of it not being that in the final chapter, but he could always do that as well with an epilogue. And I think, you know, this doesn't hurt Deku Chaco. What it does, it actually practically signifies that that's where Hori's winding up with these two characters, and that they will eventually, you know, be seen. Essentially, I think they will become canon, if, depending on what the final chapter is. And I said, I don't hate the Yaoi ships. I don't hate the Yuri ships at all. I think that if the way society, the way like corporations and the laws in Japan were different, there's always a possibility that it could have been a chance for Yaoi and Yuri shippers. But again, the way the society in Japan, where it's still not very much accepting of that LGBT, despite the fact, you know, they make yaoi manga, they make yuri manga and stuff like that. It's still not very well accepted, especially for a magazine that's aimed for, like, you know, younger audiences. So I think overall, I think the chapter did really well job in terms of handling the two's relationship, and having that moment be more of a character moment than a full-blown shipping moment. But it can still be seen as a shipping movie. So I wanted to give my thoughts on the whole situation. Hopefully you enjoyed my thoughts. Again, I apologize if I came off like sounding like you know, the Yaoi Yuri shippers should not have had their hopes up, or, you know, I think that what they ship is wrong. It's not that. It's just the way it's being presented at face value to what it is being shown to me. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, and with what Hori wanted. But we'll see. There's still a final chapter, so maybe I'm completely wrong. So, but thank you everyone who watched. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel, because I will be talking more about like My Hero Academia shipping, and more just like shipping in a lot of other fiction pretty soon. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and just remember, ship who you want. Shipping is fun. Be happy. Ship whoever you want. And even if your ship doesn't become canon, you can still ship a fan or fan fiction, all that stuff. Have fun with it. Celebrate it. I understand the importance of having a ship canon, but you don't need it to have fun shipping. Okay? I have ships that didn't become canon, and I still have fun with it. Right? So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.